I am ready to call this debate to order on Resolved, the American Dream is alive and well. I'm now looking for an opening speech in the affirmative, and for that, I'm going to go to Jason Berkovich. Jason, welcome. Thank you for giving the first speech of the night, and you have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tonight's resolution says resolve the American dream is alive and well, and I wholeheartedly support this resolution. A key question to this resolution, which was posed by Braver Angels, is do we still believe that regardless of background, anyone can achieve success if only they have the will? And I'll reiterate that ending clause there, which is key to this. If only they have the will. I think for too often, the American dream began to feel simplistic. So life was good, the stock market was up, the economy was doing well. So there was just this feeling that the American dream essentially became something that was almost automatic. And I just never felt that it was automatic. There was always a feeling that if you were really willing to put in the work, there was another level of success that could be achieved. There was another level of one's dream that you could hit. And that's where, even to this day, where there's so much division and things might look very difficult, simply because something becomes more difficult or even extremely difficult does not mean that it's not achievable. So here's some information as to why I think the American dream is not only alive, but it's very much achievable. And I'll start with something that just happened this year. Fernando Mendoza. For those that don't know, Fernando Mendoza is the 2025 Heisman Trophy winner. So Fernando Mendoza was named the best football player in all of college football for anywhere. He's the best player in all of college football. Why do I think that he epitomizes the American dream? Well, Fernando Mendoza is a Cuban American. Fernando Mendoza's mom has MS. She can't even stand up. Fernando Mendoza was what's called a two-star recruit. So think of a five-star scale when you're ordering Uber or watching a movie. Fernando Mendoza had 2 stars. This guy was terrible. Nobody wanted him. He tried out for his hometown college, which was the University of Miami, and they totally rejected him. By the way, he beat the University of Miami in the national championship game. This guy became the best player in the entire country solely from grit and determination and hard work, even coming from a family of refugees that escaped Cuba to come to the United States. Fernando Mendoza is the American dream, and now it's likely he's going to be the number one pick in the NFL draft.
Dear friend and colleague.
But
Oh,
oh,
can we have
and not
everyone
just
mute
Fernando
here?
Mendoza. Oh, I'll point out a couple of
Oh,
other examples. Just recently, we saw the nominees for the Academy Awards. If you look at who the directors are for Best Director in the Academy Awards, you have a 40-year-old Black American who comes from Oakland. You have a 41-year-old Jewish American from New York City, and you have a 43-year-old Chinese American that currently lives in California. That's the American dream. You have people from as diverse a background as you could possibly imagine, that one of them potentially is about to claim the highest award possible for a director in the American cinematic universe. They are, one of them is likely to win the Academy Award, the highest possible achievement, and they come from as diverse a background as you can possibly have. That is the American dream. You've got football, you've got arts and movies. Those are the American dreams. And the
about
other
30
thing that
seconds, Jason.
okay, and the last thing that I would notice from a financial perspective, 46% of Fortune 500 companies have immigrants or their children leading them. Of the Magnificent Seven that some may have heard of, that are the big tech companies, 4 out of 7 CEOs for the Magnificent Seven were born outside of the US. 5 of those companies were founded by immigrants or children of immigrants. And finally, according to Forbes, out of the American billionaires, 73% are self-made. They didn't inherit anything. They worked their butts off in order to get what they are.
Time, Jason.
73% of American billionaires are self-made.
With that, let's all thank our first speaker, Jason, coming in right around 4 minutes. Appreciate your argument. Let's move to questions of curiosity. Do I hear any questions of curiosity for our first speaker? Yes, I see Michelle. Michelle, please unmute and ask your question to me.
Hi there. I'm going to lower my hand first. I have a question. The American dream, as you know, has changed over time. What do you define
What
the
does the speaker think?
speaker? Can you
Sorry, you're asking about the American dream. What does the speaker think
yeah, what does a speaker think that it actually defines?
to our speaker?
To me, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the question. To me, the American dream is the ability to achieve whatever someone generally dreams of achieving, regardless of your background. So it doesn't matter who your parents are. It doesn't matter what your, economic status is or what neighborhood you were born into. To me, the American dream is ultimately that everybody, if you work hard enough, you are going to have a shot at that ultimate success. And it could be maybe a billionaire is your dream. That's one way to do it. But like I said, you can be a Heisman Trophy winner, the best football player in the nation. You could be an Academy Award winner. It's no matter what your background it is, you really work hard, you can achieve the ultimate success by putting in that time and effort.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll say this debate lends itself to discussion of individuals, right? And when that happens, we kind of have a tendency to refer to them as you, one, when we really mean one or we. There's no problem there. I'll let that go because I think it's obvious in context that it's referring to the general you. But that's just a note. That's the exception here. We're still trying to avoid the second person pronoun you. I've got another question from Anthony. Anthony, please unmute. Ask your question to me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm curious to know whether our speaker thinks that given what I perceive as the increasing range of hardships that the average American faces, what proportion of Americans feels the American dream?
To our speaker.
To our speaker.
Thank you for the question. Another great question. To me, what it comes down to is it's more difficult. So the American dream might be more difficult for it to achieve because of the hurdles that we're dealing with in the country right now, because of the division, because resources are overwhelmingly available in potentially, urban areas as opposed to more rural areas. So there are additional hurdles that people are facing nowadays. However, again, going back to what I was saying before, if an individual is willing to put in that time, that energy, that effort, that willpower, and stay determined, there are many examples of how that dream could still succeed. In sports, in arts, in business, there are still many examples of putting in that work, putting in that time in which they can still succeed. So I would agree that it is more difficult today than it might have been yesterday, but it's not impossible. It's all about if you have a will, there is a way.
All right. We just got another question. I'll take three here. Alan, do you want to unmute and ask your question to me?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Yes, so Mr. Chair, yeah, the speaker gave some great examples of high achievers being able to get the American dream through their exceptional will and talents. And I think he made a great case that the American dream is still alive and well for those exceptional people.
And your question?
My question is, does the speaker believe that as you measure certain things across the entire country, things like, percentage of people who own a home or financial stability of people, if you measure those over time, would he still be confident that the American dream writ large is alive and well?
To our speaker. Answer as you please.
Thanks again for the question. I do, and I'll give a good example in terms of more everyday families and Americans and what you might be dealing with. Looking at a home. So there are, I've spoken to people who really would say that the American dream is home ownership. Well, I think given some of the things that are happening in society nowadays, some people seem to think that the American dream is you can buy a home where you want rather than you can buy a home. And if you want to buy a home, there's actually still a lot of options for buying a home. So, for example, I live in San Diego where housing is extremely expensive. But if I really wanted to buy a home, I could probably afford a place in Alaska, or I could probably afford a place in Idaho, or maybe in South Dakota, or other states where it's more affordable. I think the American dream has been manipulated a little bit to mean we get whatever we want for the price that we want to pay. And I don't think that that was ever really the American dream. The American dream was more if you work hard, you can succeed, but it doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be comfortable. So that home ownership is still possible if you're willing to go somewhere where not as many people want to live. Making a higher salary could still be possible, but you might have to work in an industry that others are not interested in working in. So our decisions, in my opinion, have a lot more say in our ability to succeed. And we might have to be uncomfortable, but we still have the option to succeed if as long as we're willing to be uncomfortable.
With that, I'd like to thank our first speaker. I see there's another hand. There are probably more lurking. Please save those questions. And we'll direct them at further speakers. Round of jazz hands for Jason. It's not an easy thing to do to open out a Bravery Angels debate. That was the first speech in a Bravery Angels National Community Debate we will hear this year. Fantastic. We're ready to move to the negative now on Resolved, the American Dream is Alive and Well. And for our first speech in the negative, I'd like to go to Alan Perper. Alan, if you're ready, please unmute and you've got 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate the opportunity to present in this debate, and it is my first one. I'm taking the negative stance on the resolution, Resolve, the American Dream is Alive and Well. I take this stance because I believe that this somewhat vague concept of the American dream is a falsehood that has never really existed. The dream has never been available to very large swaths of people of this nation. It's more of a marketing slogan than it is a reality. The words of bootstrapping, opportunities for all, work hard and reap rewards, play by the rules and you'll succeed. As our previous speaker said, if you have the will, you should be able to get there. No guarantees, and I agree with our previous speaker that whatever the dream is, it does take work and it takes will. But when the historian James Adams first spoke about the American dream during the despair of the Great Depression, his attention for this concept was not necessarily to prize material success above all other values, but rather that the individual, the family, the community would live a better, richer, and happier life. And this should be available for citizens of every rank. My question is, was this just a tonic aimed at calming a very distraught populace, or was it a vision for a future where all citizens could succeed? I'd like to go back into history as a nation as it relates to the American dream and maybe look at it through other eyes. We are an economy that started out built on slavery. Westward expansion required, quote, pacifying the indigenous population. But then came one of the most amazing documents produced by this young country, We the People. This is an amazing intro to incredible ideas. However, who were we the people? They were certainly white men with land or fortune. They were not slaves. They were not women. They were not indigenous people. And they were not poor white trash. This was a term used back then. And they were excluded. We the people only referred to 20% of this nation. Pre- and post-Civil War legislation, such as Jim Crow laws, Asian immigration laws, Indian removal acts, etc. Who set these things in place? Our nation did. How about redlining? When the previous speaker talks about one of the marks of success is homeownership, redlining was so prevalent in so many communities and disparity in credit offerings to non-white people, with the intent to prevent Black, Brown, Asian, Jewish, Irish, and more, quote, undesirables from having a place in desirable neighborhoods. So if the American dream focuses on metrics such as your title at work, the amount of money in your bank account, the brand of the vehicle you drive, and the square footage of the house you own, then
About 30 seconds, Alan.
I contend it's a fantasy. Of course, there are many stories of people rising up and succeeding despite innumerable obstacles, and these stories should be honored and repeated. But you have to ask the questions, why are those obstacles in place? So as not to end on a down note, and I will just be quick, I'd like to propose that we, the people, like braver angels, can identify and work to enable a different American dream where every citizen is respected, has quality health care, connected to their fellow citizens, loved by their family, honored in their golden years, that's personal, and has every opportunity to achieve the dream, however they choose to define it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you to our first speaker in the negative. Let's move to questions. Does anyone have questions of curiosity for the speaker? Questions of curiosity or clarification? I know they're there. And while I'm waiting here and letting questions pile up, I see one already. I'll just add that I've noticed that the speaker queue is taking a little longer than I would normally expect to fill, and I get that. It's been a little while. We haven't done one of these since November, but don't hesitate if you're interested in giving a speech. Reach out to your whip, get on the list. That's how we keep this conversation going. That's how we keep the debate going. And I will say, I guess this maybe could have gone without saying, but you have up to 4 minutes. You don't have to use the whole 4 minutes. So if you have a story to tell and you don't think it's going to go the whole time, no problem. That's no barrier. We still want to hear from you. Let's go now to questions. Thanks for pausing there for a moment, Alan. Alexa, please unmute. Ask your question to me.
Hi, Mr. Chair, and apologies to everyone whose Amazons just talked to them. I'm wondering if our speaker would say that there's nothing exceptional about America, or what he would say is exceptional about America. I'm curious.
Fantastic question. To our speaker.
Thank you very much for that question. I do
You're welcome.
believe there is quite a bit, Mr. Chair, that is exceptional about this country. I don't think it is well placed across the population. That is part of our problem. We just don't have the quality of the exceptionalism that others would like to have.
Let's go for another here to Jonathan Jenkins. Jonathan, please unmute. Ask your question to me.
Can you guys hear me good?
I can.
All right. I do have, Sir Chair, I appreciate your time. It's kind of like a 2-sentence lead into the question. It's being inside of the dream. It is very easy to, like when you're in a dream, right, you think it's real. It takes someone from outside the dream, someone from outside to wake you and show you that you're dreaming, or for you to wake up to realize there is a dream that actually exists.
So
With that being said, here's the question. With that being said, is that why do millions upon millions upon millions of people try to leave their country to come to us and live the American dream if it doesn't exist?
To our speaker.
Mr. Chair, thank you for that question. It is a great point because many people want to come here. I think personally, they may have bought into a marketing ploy. They also may come from nations that are harsher, less economic opportunity, and that are gang-ridden, that have a lot of problems. It's not to say we are the worst or the best. We are a destination, as are other nations too.
Thank you for the response. Thanks for the good questions. I saw another hand at one point. Do we have one more? I'll take another. Yes, I see Foster. Foster, please unmute. Ask your question to me.
So my question starts also with a statement. When I have medical residents and they're doing very well emotionally, I tell them that they chose their parents very well. And my question really goes to, how do we get this love and respect and equanimity for all people without a huge social change?
To our speaker.
Mr. Chair, I am not a psychologist or a social worker. However, I believe the question is very well placed. And we are talking about something that needs to be focused within communities, within faith houses, within other groups. and be pushing forward like Braver Angels does to move this country and its societies and communities in the direction that the questioner just asked about. It is a long haul. I just don't see us with the energy or the focus to do it.
With that, let's thank our first speaker in the negative and our first speaker. Well, I guess how should I say this? Our first speaker in the negative happened to be giving his first speech in a Braver Angels debate, in his first Braver Angels debate. That's not an easy feat. Thank you very much, Alan. And I just want to, before we move to the affirmative, I want to make a note on these statements before the questions. I let those slide because they were very fast, but I would prefer to not see statements leading into questions because that can be a slippery slope into making arguments instead of offering curious questions. So please emphasize curiosity when phrasing your questions. I'll help you with that. We're going to move back to the affirmative for another speech. And for this, we'll go to someone who has been to many Braver Angels debates before. Jet.
Okay.
4 minutes.
Mr. Chair, I am an immigrant. I immigrated to USA from South Korea in 1959 via an adoption by an American GI. When I first came to USA at age 11, I hardly spoke a word of English. Nevertheless, I was thrown into 5th grade to sink or swim. By the way, that was in Wisconsin, Mr. Chair, where you live. I didn't sink. In fact, I did very well. I received an academic scholarship to attend a university, received an aerospace engineering degree, and served the country as a U.S. naval officer during the Vietnam War period. Returning from the service, I went to work for an all-American aircraft engine design, development, manufacturing business, and retired from there as a vice president from Pratt & Whitney Aircraft with a very nice pension and very comfortable retirement nest egg savings in 2013. Yes, I realized the so-called American dream. I am a testament that anyone in America, regardless of where they came from, what ethnicity they are, or what color of their skin is, anyone can realize the so-called American dream. But realize the American dream is not free. It requires studying hard, working hard, and persevering with determination. By now, you are most likely thinking that I'm a red-leaning person, and you are absolutely right. I am a red-leaning conservative, not a MAGA Republican, however. I believe in individual freedom with personal responsibility. I strongly believe that individual freedom comes with that personal responsibility. We are free to study hard, work hard, and persevere to American dream. Or we don't have to study, we don't have to work hard and become a homeless person in the street. That is one's choice or personal responsibility of having a freedom. Yes, I realize that that achieving the so-called American dream is a bit difficult these days with an affordability issue, which means that we must work a little bit harder, study harder, and so hereby I challenge all of you to work together and be a courageous citizen to fix the affordability issue, such that our young generation could achieve American dream a little bit easier. Yes, it is a bit harder to achieve American dream, but it is still alive and well. If we study a bit harder, work a bit harder, and persevere with great determination, yes, we still can achieve American dream. That's my position. Thank you.
Thank you for another speech in the affirmative. We'll go right to a question. Hand went up really quickly. Natalie, please unmute. Ask your question to me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you ask the speaker if he thinks that everyone has equal access to the American dream?
To our speaker.
Absolutely. We all have our free choice. This is a free country. We all can study hard, or we don't have to study hard and we can be a homeless person. We all have the same opportunity. Yes.
Let's go to another question. Katie, Please unmute. Ask your question to me.
Could you please ask the speaker what he believes the role of his education played in the path that he made forward, and if he were to have landed in a family that did not have that similar path, would the American dream be as accessible?
To our speaker.
Excellent question. Yes, I believe that my education had a lot to do with it. However, I study hard and work hard to achieve my education in spite of coming to the United States and put into fifth grade without any formal education, not being able to speak any English. So yes, everybody has that opportunity. You have to start from the beginning, work hard, study hard, and persevere. That's what I did. I did not come to a rich family, or I did not inherit big nest egg inheritance. Thank you.
Let's go to one more very quickly. And I said someone whose hand I saw once before. Wendy, would you please unmute and ask your question to me? Please be quick.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was curious. I don't understand what the speaker means by work hard. Is it measurable? How do you measure it? By what means
How does the speaker measure it?
How would it be measured?
Let's go to our speaker. I think that's great.
Excellent question. Yeah, I guess working hard is different to different people, which means that you just have to continue to, with the determination and pursue whatever that you want to achieve. Okay, that means just the perseverance.
Thank you to Jet. Thank you to our first or second speaker in the affirmative. Let's have a round of jazz hands. And thank you to all of our curious questioners there for brief questions, for concise questions, for curious questions. Let's go back to the negative now. We've got another speech lined up in the negative. And for this, I will go to Alexa. Alexa Robinson, you can unmute and you have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I would like to start off by just explaining that I fundamentally disagree with how the American dream has come to be defined. I feel as though we've heard so far that it's come to be defined by commercialism and financial success, as opposed to what I see is more of a pluralistic society that enables a capacity for moral self-correction. That's what I see as the true intention behind the American dream. And I actually think that's also in danger by the very thing that this group is attempting to combat, which is polarization. So yay for us for being here. But when we think back to the origins of our country, there are people who were seeking religious freedom, freedom to associate and be seen as themselves. They wanted to set down these ideals for all, or who they saw as all. And I think Alan's already pointed out quite well that America hasn't been perfect.
Previous speaker.
Previous speaker, my apologies. The dream wasn't built cleanly. Native people did die. They were driven out of their homes. People were kidnapped, torn apart from their homes, treated like animals, and murdered with abandon. But the American dream is not those heinous crimes. Frederick Douglass himself explains this best in his speech, What to the Slave is the 4th of July, where he tells his white audience that the holiday is not his holiday in the way it was for them. His people were not free or allowed to pursue their own lives or happinesses, but despite that, despite everything America had done, Douglass saw in the Declaration of Independence the great principles it contained. The ideals existed, they'd been violated, and they also provided the language and moral leverage for demanding change. Even when change is hard and there are people on the wrong side of the dialogue, there is hope. Hope is alive in the vision, and a solution is built through dialogue. Another takeaway from this reckoning that we've spoken about before is that the notion that, dialogues, somebody's going to always be on the wrong side of history. It's just a fact. But those people aren't evil. They may be ignorant or wrong, but we can't learn or grow without a dialogue. And that's part of what our society, the American society, has been able to develop, a pluralistic one that evolves to the next best version of ourselves. And the journey is not always clean or linear, like I said, but in a world where dialogue is critical, We have to have grace, listening, and empathy, and it's more important than ever. And the American dream has gotten us to this point where we do our best to hear all voices across the spectrum of color, gender, and sexuality. Remember that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. America was built on a concept that Voltaire popularized. I disapprove of what you say, but I will defend to the death your right to say it. And what this breeds is disagreement, but also a commitment to truth and justice, to the notion that everyone's voice is equal and willing to be heard. And the proof is that while our country didn't start out recognizing the rights of women and people of color, for example, it came to do so and still managed to maintain its status as a nation of collective people. I'd say right now we're in a battle over our morality in America. You know, what are we going to be? Are we going to be one driven by greed is good, or one that returns to purpose, one set out by our founders to be a place where anyone can pursue life, liberty, and happiness? And while
30
people may
seconds.
disagree, thank you. While people may disagree, might strive for opposite things, this melting pot has created some of the best people and notions because we are a melting pot. And our strength is in our military prowess or our wealth. It's our people. And our dialogue is the dream, and I'm glad to add my voice. So thank you.
Wow. I will say that speech allows me, seems ripe to offer that this group, all of you tonight, have come prepared to kick Braver Angels Debates National Community Series for 2026 off on a very strong note. Thank you thank you to everyone who has so far offered amazingly compelling speeches and offered unique insights based on personal experiences, stories, and research. Let's go to questions. I will go to a previous speaker first. Jason, please unmute, ask your question to me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm wondering if the speaker could comment on the election of Barack Obama as president and Kamala Harris as vice president, and several women and members of the LGBT community and Native Americans that serve in leadership roles throughout the country right now in government and in business.
To our speaker, your comment.
Yes, I think it's wonderful that that has happened. I'm not certain I understand the relevance. Can I ask for clarification? Is that allowed?
I think I'm seeing enough hands that I think it makes sense to just ask you to respond in the way that you see fit, and then we'll move on to other questions.
Okay. I'm so sorry, Jason. I don't think I understand your point. Because just to maybe clarify mine, like the beauty of America is that while women and people of color weren't able to vote at the beginning of our country, we're still the same country, and now they can. Like, that's incredible. Like that's a flexibility and an adaptability that also has a vision at its core. And that's what makes America a really wonderful country. So I'm with you on that. That's awesome.
You're with the speaker. That's wonderful. Thanks for the thoughtful response. Let's go to another.
And I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to talk directly to people. I'm so sorry.
You're okay. You're okay. I'm just softly nudging, but that's okay. I understand. It can feel a little bit funky when you first are participating.
Thank you for the question.
You're welcome. Jet, let's go to another.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I like to compliment the previous speaker that she's.
Do you have a question as well?
Yes. Well, no,
Okay.
I just want to say that she is absolutely correct. It is more than just money. And
Jet, I'm sorry. I appreciate that the compliments are certainly well deserved for everyone, but we're looking for questions right now. I saw a number of hands go up after the speech.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's take questions of
the checks
curiosity.
in the mail. Sorry.
More questions. Suzanne, please unmute, ask your question to me.
Speaker, I'm curious how Chair, I'm curious how the speaker would respond. She's the first person that's made a collective argument for the American dream. I'm curious what she would say to the speakers on the other side who've made pointed arguments about individual success. Does the collective argument suppress individual rights to the American dream?
To our speaker, thank you for the concise question.
Yeah, that's a very interesting one, and I don't know that I have a fully formed thought for you, for the great question that has been asked. And I think for myself, I don't see the collective, at least for the American dream, necessarily as something like the collective can suppress the individual, absolutely, and absolutely has throughout history. But I think part of what is driving positive change and, the arc towards a better tomorrow is this vision of, all people should have this right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I think we've just expanded over time who the collective views as a person, which is really good. And we should, continue to question that and make sure that we are inclusive and thoughtful about all of those perspectives.
Fantastic. I'm not seeing any more questions. I would take one more, but I'm gonna go once, twice. Peggy, you snuck in. Please unmute. Ask your question to me. Please be brief. You're muted. And I'm Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair. Okay, I've never done this before, so I'm brand new. So
welcome.
Yeah. And for this, Mr. Chair, would you ask the speaker if then, based on what she said, do you really think does the speaker think that the American dream is not alive and well? Because I don't know. I love what the speaker was saying, and I feel the same way. We still have some diversity. We have equality. The basic foundations of our country.
Let's go to our speaker. Is
okay.
Is the American dream still alive and well based on what you said?
Yeah, I think it's got a cold, like I think it's doing okay, but it could do a little better. That's like at least my personal interpretation, because I do feel as though, dialogue is the heart of it. And I think that polarization and the way that we kind of leverage social media and all have our own little bubbles is the greatest danger for that dialogue, because we can't talk from the same factual basis. And so I think that, like that is why it's got a cold, but we still have time to realize like, oh, maybe I shouldn't get all my news from Twitter. Maybe I should elect to watch the other news cycle that, news people that I don't want to watch, or, just try out something different, like reading a book. All these wild notions, because that's what would make you a good citizen. And hey, we're all here at Braver Angels doing this. So this is what makes it alive and well.
Let's thank our previous speaker. There are no checks in her mail, but perhaps there should be. Thank you for the wonderful speech in the negative. Let's go back to the affirmative now. Back and forth. This is what we do. We insist upon disagreement. So for this, I am looking for Brian Felder. Brian, please unmute. You've got 4 minutes.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to the previous speakers. I think they and the people asking questions have brought up some great points. So I hope I can address some of those. Okay, so the American dream has never been a guarantee. It's been a belief, a sort of promise, a belief that no matter where you start, through your effort, your character, your determination, you can build a better life. And today, despite the challenges we face, I believe that promise is still very much alive. Now, it's also true that the path towards it has changed. And depending on who you are, where you live, what you earn, the path can look very different. So for some, opportunity feels wide open. For others, depending on income class, you're facing systematic barriers. The climb feels much steeper than it should. Wages don't stretch as far. Housing costs rise faster than paychecks. Education and healthcare can feel out of reach. And for the middle class, the stability that once defined the American dream is much less certain. Yet, even with these obstacles, the dream persists, not as nostalgia, but as a lived reality for millions of people. And we can see it in first-generation Americans who start businesses that support families, in workers who retrain mid-career, in order to keep up with the economy, in people who are the first generation in their family to go to college or to train in other ways for paths that are just as noble. And we see it in Americans who live the dream in a much quieter, harder way through long hours, multiple jobs, and sacrifice that rarely make headlines, but the progress is real. Social mobility really happens in this country, even if it's uneven, even if it's more uneven than it should be. And that's exactly why it matters that we affirm the American dream. If we declare it dead, we're going to stop fighting for it. And anybody who has ever had success started out by dreaming of something. So this is where I think Martin Luther King was when he said, "I have a dream." He wasn't describing a fantasy. He was calling people to keep pushing, to believe that progress was possible. Even when the path was steep, the obstacles were very real. His dream was not an escape. It was a source of energy and of inspiration. He believed change could be achieved, and that belief fueled action, and it fueled very real change. So that attitude, that blend of hope and responsibility is exactly what the American dream requires from us today. The truth is that the dream has always been evolving. It's always changed. In the 1940s, it may have been the end of World War II. In the 50s, it may have meant a house, a car, a single income. So today it might mean stability, meaningful work, the freedom to shape your own future, whether you're raising a family, starting a business, or simply having a fair shot at opportunity. So the dream isn't gone, it's changing. That change doesn't mean failure, it means more responsibility. And that responsibility in many ways comes down to communities like this, like the Braver Angels, that we need to listen to the hardships as well as the passion and what's going well, so that we can help
About 30
broaden.
seconds, Brian.
Thank you. So that we can help broaden the road to the American dream so it's wider and available to more people. So the dream is still alive because Americans are still striving, still building, still believing in tomorrow, and that tomorrow can be better than today. And so long as that spirit endures in our communities, in our families, and in ourselves, the American dream is most certainly alive. Thank you.
Thank you to our third speaker in the affirmative. Thank you, Brian. And right on time. That was the most perfect timing yet. So you've got that award. Let's go to questions. Clay, I see a hand. Please unmute and ask your question to me.
Thanks, Mr. Chair and previous speaker. You talked about the previous
speaker.
Yes, the previous speaker spoke about the definition changing, and I think there's a collective definition that has changed over time. And I'm wondering for the speaker, because it seems that we're in a place where the idea of work could be changing with the precipice of AI and those sorts of things. So how would the collective conscious of America change and feel optimistic about a dream going forward with that coming
to our speaker?
Great. So yeah, that's a great question and a very important point. So I think a lot of that comes down to generations and how generations are looking at things. So when I was growing up, the thinking was you go to college, you get out of college, you get a job, and what the workforce was has very much changed. But at the same time, what education was has also very much changed. And so a great deal of it today is based around technology. And so I think much of the American dream remains the same, even though what work is, where the jobs are, things like that are changing a great deal. That doesn't mean that the dream needs to change a whole lot in terms of what it is. It just where you end up going in order to get there could be a little bit different.
Let's go to one more question here for the speaker. Karen, please unmute and ask a question to me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am so curious when one speaks of if you work hard, if you go to college, et cetera, what does that do, or what does that involve if you are from a working class community or a community of color, which does not have the same options and does not have the same abilities. On an individual basis, yes.
Let's go to our speaker. That's a well-formed question right there.
Okay. Yeah. So on an individual basis, yes, that there is, so it certainly takes determination and maybe it takes more hard work. But the opportunities are out there, and we certainly do see people from those communities see.
Uh-oh, Brian.
And as I said, I hope that we can work as a community, profit sort of thing. All right, thank you. Thank you.
All right, Brian. Brian, you did chop out a little bit there. Sounds like I'm seeing everyone move accordingly, and I'm seeing a lot of nods. So I'm going to invite you to just give us the 15-second spark notes of your response there to that question, and then we'll move on if you're up for it and if your connection is stable enough. If it's maybe not.
I'm not sure what's going on.
Okay. Well, I caught a gist, and we'll hope to have some of these points clarified as we move along. Thank you to our third speech in the affirmative, Brian, jazz hands. And thanks for a couple of curious questions for clarification. We're now moving to the third speech in the negative. And this is the part of the night where we're not deviating, we're just leaving the pre-planned list of speakers. We always try to cultivate a queue of about 4 to 6 people to kick off the debate on a strong note. And at some point we open the floor, and that's what our whips are doing throughout the debate to try and keep the debate going and get people on the list who want to give a speech. So we're ready to move to that point. And this should be a signal to all who are interested in giving a speech. If you have something that you'd like to contribute here, we've got plenty of room in the speaker queue, and I can adjust speaking times as needed to fit people in. So don't hesitate to reach out to your whip. If this is your first time in a Braver Angels debate and you think that, oh, maybe I shouldn't, it's my first time, there are plenty of speakers already who would disprove that claim. So let's go to Katie for another speech in the negative. Katie, you've got 4 minutes. Please unmute. With that, let's thank our speaker, Katie. Thank you for your excellent speech and responses to the curious questions. And thank you to all who raised their hands and asked questions there. Keep those questions coming. When we move back to the affirmative now, I'm looking for Jonathan. Jonathan, you had your hand up a moment ago.
Can you hear me?
I'm eager to hear your speech. I can. You've got 4 minutes.
All right. Thank you, Sir Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, the technical definition of the American dream is the idea that the United States is a land of opportunity, freedom, and upward mobility. Imagine living in a dream so vivid, so immersive that you don't even realize you're in it. It takes waking up or someone from outside the dream to point it out, for you to see the truth. That's the American dream today. Although alive, thriving, we often fail to realize and recognize it because we're too close to see its wonders. Every year, millions of immigrants risk everything to come to America, knowing life here offers opportunity unmatched elsewhere. 2025 KFF NYT survey finds 70% of immigrants report better finances in the U.S., 65% better employment, 74% better education, and 70% would choose to immigrate again. They hustle, build from scratch, and grasp the American dream. Not all succeed like Icarus, but those willing to try hard enough make it their reality. I've traveled to 14 countries and lived in 4 of them for 3 months or more. What I've seen has opened my eyes. Even our poorest in America live like kings compared to the hardships abroad in many places. Basic necessities are luxuries. Here we take abundance for granted. Think back to our grandparents, one of the builders of after the Great Depression. My grandpa lived in a trailer with just a radio, no TV, no phone, no endless choices of food, yet he built from nothing to become a millionaire. Though the money's gone now, my grandma's burning it. His story shows what's possible. Today, every American has a TV, a smartphone, and access to millions of different food products from around the world. We've come so far. Our poor get help until they're 18 when they're labeled as adults. In other countries, children as young as 4 are left to fend for themselves. We provide safety nets that foster opportunity, turning potential into reality. But the American dream is dying, though still more alive than dead. Our greatest weakness is our own minds, self-defeating thoughts that bind us to or blind us to our blessings. It's the left and right unwilling to get along, fracturing our unity. We live in a fractured paradise where division threatens to erode what we built. Yet let's not despair. The dream persists in our innovations, our freedoms, our resilience. From rags to riches stories like my grandpa, mine, my sister's, to the global envy of our lifestyles, it's alive. We must wake up, bridge divides, and nurture it before it's too late. To reclaim it fully, reject pessimism, embrace gratitude for our abundance, work together across aisles. The American dream isn't just surviving, it's waiting for us to live it boldly. The previous speaker brought up the point that the American dream means you should have better outcomes, such as houses should be bigger and better than our parents and grandparents. How is this logical when space is finite? The speaker also said the dream is everyone getting what they want. How is this possible since, again, resources are finite? My wife is an immigrant. She immigrated from Peru, and her whole family immigrated here legally, and not just one or two people or five people, but 20 plus people moved here. And my wife is more successful than I, although now she's a stay-at-home mother of our children due to the fact I can live the American dream. I was raised poor as a child. I remember churches had to donate food to my mom so that we can eat as children. And when I graduated high school, I was a C student, and I joined the military, and I learned and saw these other countries and learned what real hard work looks like, and did that. And now, because of that, my wife can be a stay-at-home mother of our children. Are you about to say something? Sorry, Sir Chair.
No, you've got
Okay.
about 40 seconds left.
And so I am proof of the American dream, coming from rags to where I am now, where my wife can be the stay-at-home mom because I fought my butt off for it. So did my sister, who was raised in the same poor household as me. So can my wife and her 20 family members that moved here from Peru. I am not just me saying, oh, I have lived this American dream. I can look at her family who came
15
from
seconds.
not our country to see their rags to riches stories. And at one point, my wife was making more than me, but we've decided, and my wife decided that she wants to be a stay-at-home mother. The American dream is live and well. And thank you for your time, Sir Chair, and thank you for listening, everyone. Hopefully I opened some eyes.
Thank you for your speech, Jonathan, and thank you for making it quick so that you could get that content in 4 minutes. I'm looking forward to curious questions for our speaker in the affirmative here. And I'm seeing some new hands, so excited to call on them. Gary, please unmute and ask your question to me.
Mr. Chair, I'm curious how the speaker thinks that the previous speaker did not realize the American dream. And I don't think the previous speaker is unusual.
To our speaker? Answer
Thanks for the question, Sir Chair. Yeah, the previous speaker literally stated the fact that the American dream is dead. Didn't say that it's alive, didn't say that it's dying, didn't say that it's partially there, that it is dead based off of these 3 or 4 facts that I've said are impossibilities. Because again, if all of our houses just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger for every generation that went on, eventually everyone would have a mansion, everyone would have 50 acres. Eventually, more kids are born. They have to have mansions that are bigger than our mansions, and again, more acreage. And so, again, space is finite, resources are finite. Not everyone can be a millionaire. Not everyone can have a giant home. It's impossible.
Let's go. I had a question. I had a hand up from Harry. Harry, would you unmute and ask your question to me, please?
Yes. Hi. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi. So what would the speaker advise on getting rid of self-defeating thoughts to pursuing the desired American dream?
Thanks for the question, Harry. To our speaker.
Thank you, Sir Chair. That's hard.
It's Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Sir, ex-military. Everyone's sir or ma'am to me. It's bred. It's a part of my being.
I understand.
It's a matter of respect.
I hear England, and I'm like, wait, what? This is not a. Yes, okay.
I would say that is very hard to do. I would say that our society, although we do still have the American dream, I think that we're all very self-defeating because again, we're living in the dream. I think to not see or to actually see how good we have it, you would have to go to one of these countries. You would have to go see what the not dream looks like. You know, you'd have to go live that life. I've lived in 11 countries, people. It's crazy out there. It's way harder out there than what we have it here. And in order to get past the, oh, we suck, you have to see what actual suck means. And we don't suck. We have an American dream that's alive and well, and I'm thoroughly grateful that I got to serve this country. I'm married to an immigrant wife from another country, and we've all been very successful. Her and family's been successful. It's alive and well.
Let's go for one more
Thank
super
you.
quick question. I'm seeing a new hand. Jim, would you like to unmute and ask your question to me? Please be brief. Jim, you're muted.
Hi, sorry about that, Mr. Chairman. I would like to ask the previous speaker how many months and years he has lived experiencing firsthand some of the more impoverished sections of this country.
To our speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so my whole childhood. So my entire childhood from when, I was born, my mom left my stepfather or my father, sorry, not stepfather. And from when I was 1 up until I was 18, I was poor. We're talking my mom would have clothes donated from the church, secondhand clothing, food. Like we didn't eat. My mom did not shop for food. The church would throw potlucks, and then my mom would scoop up all the leftovers of the potlucks from the church's request. And that's what we ate for the week. We did not eat, the food my mom cooked or bought. I was one of the poorest people probably in this country for the first 16 to 18 years of my life. And so I would say 16 to 18 years. I'm only 37 now. And so 16 to 18 years I lived in poverty.
And with that, I'd like to thank our speaker, Jonathan, for his speech in the affirmative.
And thank you for your time.
Let's move back to the negative now. We've got right now, I guess I'll just interject here. Right now we have enough speeches lined up to have 5 more speeches. We've got, and it's because we only have 2 more affirmatives. So if you're in the audience and you haven't already contacted WHIP and you'd like to give a speech in the affirmative, if what we just heard is compelling to you, or you have something you think you can add, reach out to one of our WHIPs and consider offering even a minute's worth of your perspective. It'll allow us to bring in more people on the negative side. And Braver Angels debates, we can't continue if we don't have, we insist upon disagreement, productive disagreement. We can't continue if we don't have speeches on both sides. That's okay. We're already like that. This debate is flying by and we're moving quickly. So we may not, we can make it work, and I should stop yammering on. Let's move on. We'll go to Bill Chapman next for another speech in the negative. Bill, please unmute. You have 4 minutes as well.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, traditionally, when people talk about the American dream, they talk about home ownership. Liz Warren always talks about the little guy who works hard and plays by the rules. And one of the rules is everybody has to buy the dwelling they live in. I don't think this is a wise investment strategy because typically home ownership requires massive debt, like usually a 20 or more likely 30-year loan. I'm a computer programmer for Wall Street. I've been an economist reader for 20 years. And I think a lot about finance. Real estate often crashes. We had a real estate nationwide peak in 2006, followed by a nationwide real estate crash. The thing is, prior to that, nobody thought that was possible. Wall Street didn't think it was possible. The homeowners didn't think it was possible. Everybody thought it was a fundamental law of physics that real estate values would always rise. And when they didn't, it broke the financial system. If you live in a one-factory town and that factory closes, your home becomes worthless. There's a movie, Nomadland, where Frances McDormand is a widow, and she lives in a one-factory town, and all she owns is her home. The factory closes, her home becomes worthless, and she travels around in a Econoline van. She can't even afford an RV, and works stints in Amazon warehouses because she can't afford to retire. And the thing is, if you wind up in a real estate crash, you wind up penniless. If the factory you work at closes and it's the only factory in town and that factory closes, you lose your job and you have no money to move or retrain. This has happened all over the country, and somehow people don't talk about, well, maybe I shouldn't have bought the home I lived in. Buying the home you live in is such a fundamental assumption that Americans never question it. After the real estate crash in 2008, people were driving 2 hours either way to work because their homes were underwater. They couldn't sell them, and there was a recession, so they had to go a long way to find any jobs. And nobody said, maybe I shouldn't have bought the home I lived in. I had a friend who bought a condo, and the neighborhood was taken over by violent gangs who were having shootouts in the street all the time. He was afraid to go back to his condo. He sold it, and wound up $70,000 in debt from income tax on the debt forgiveness when the home was foreclosed on, and it was worth so much less than the loan. I was in Silicon Valley, a programmer in Silicon Valley during the dot-com bust. 40% of the office space in Silicon Valley was unused. Tens of thousands of us were unemployed. An Indian programmer would work for 1/5 of the salary of an American programmer, less than it took to sustain life in the US. We thought the jobs had gone to India and they were never coming back. I was a renter, so I put a bunch of stuff in storage, moved in with a roommate to save money, and pinched pennies, started taking class in paralegal, and then the jobs came back. But I made it until the jobs came back without going into debt.
About 30 seconds, Bill.
If I'd had a mortgage, I wouldn't have been able to do that. I have no faith in Trump's economic competence. I moved all my money outside the country. Because my money was in stocks and bonds, I could do that in an afternoon. The flexibility that you get, and stocks can't go negative. Stocks and bonds can't go negative. The worst they can get is zero.
Running out of time here, Bill.
Okay.
Okay, you want to offer a final statement or is final
No,
sentence?
that's
right.
pretty much it.
Wonderful. Thank you for your speech. Let's go to questions. I'm going to kind of move us along here because I want to see what we can fit in. Brian, please unmute, ask your question to me.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I apologize to you and everybody else if I seem to have disappeared before. But so my question for the speaker is, so I understand what he's saying about housing and about, whether it's the US dollar or the stock market. But does that simply mean that the American dream should not include those things, that we should be reanalyzing?
Yes, it shouldn't have this assumption that homeownership is the way to get wealth. You can do very well just investing over years in stocks and bonds.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Let's go to Ronit. Sorry if I said your name incorrectly. Is it Ronit?
Ronit.
Ronit, please unmute like you said you did and ask your question to me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The speaker defined the American dream as conventionally as we know it as home ownership. My question to the speaker is, how would you redefine the American dream?
To our speaker, how would he redefine our American dream?
I would encourage people to learn. The thing about in stocks and bonds, you can do it wrong, you can do it right. You have to learn how to do it. Most people buy the home because it seems simple, but the massive many years salary worth of debt should be a red flag, and more people should learn to invest in stocks and bonds. That's it.
All right. With that, I'm going to move us along because we've gotten a new speaker in the affirmative on the list now. So this means we can fit in 3 more speeches on each side. And the way that we're going to do this is we're going to move to 2-minute speeches, and we're going to limit the number. I'm going to probably call 1, maybe 2 if questions are tight and fast after each speech. So without further ado, let me dive into our remaining queue. I'm looking for Ramsey Zimmerman for a 2-minute speech in the affirmative.
Thank you.
I will speak twice as fast as I had planned to. For some context, I am the host of the What's Worthwhile podcast. I am an author and I am a nutritional therapy practitioner. I am speaking in the affirmative that the American dream is alive and well, but I say that realizing and understanding that how we articulated the American dream in past years probably feels quaint and outdated to modern ears. So the idea that you work hard, you get an education, you find a job, you stick with that job and buy a home and get married and have kids and live the good life, that statement is just so filled with assumptions about what it is that people even want to do or what they see for themselves in their lives. As many of our previous speakers have stated, people are looking for different things. Perhaps they want to buy a home, perhaps they don't. Perhaps they want to get married and have kids. Perhaps they have other dreams and aspirations. I think that perhaps today we want other things like equity and justice. But what it comes down to is that the American dream is not dead. It is hopeful, it is aspirational, it is optimistic, and we need those things in order to have forums like this. What are we going to do without hope? And dreams, by their nature, are not measurable. They're things that we try to find, we try to achieve. Sometimes we can achieve our dreams, and sometimes we cannot. But the way that we can find and achieve our dreams in America is through opportunities. Are all of those opportunities open and available to everyone? That's difficult to say. And that's probably what I think that we should focus on working at, is making those opportunities open and available and making people far more competitive and able to achieve the opportunities that they wish to pursue.
Right on time. Thank you, Ramsey. Do I have a question of curiosity for our speaker here? Going once, go. Okay. Terry, please unmute. Ask your question to me.
Yes, I'm curious. What does the speaker think is the responsibility of a company to pay a wage that allows a worker to pursue the American dream?
Back to our speaker. Thank you for the question, Terry.
Yeah, the regarding responsibilities that companies have, I think that it's in the best interest of companies to pay competitive market wages so that they can attract good talent and so that the people who work for them will be happy and healthy and so that they'll stay and they'll remain. And when corporations underpay systematically, they're not going to achieve and be successful. So I think it's in the best interest of companies to pay good competitive wages.
With that, let's thank our first lightning round speaker in the affirmative. I'm going to move quickly now to the negative again so that we can try and fit in a long list here of final speakers. I'm looking for Marissa Gaston.
Hello, Mr.
Marissa,
Speaker.
you have 2 minutes.
First, I want to start with a concession, which is a really important one, that yes, millions of people around the world are desperate. And yes, the United States is still, and by comparison, an extraordinarily attractive place to come. And yes, many immigrants arrive here and find much more opportunity, safety, and material comfort than they had before. That is real, that matters, and it should never be minimized. But in my view, there's a mistake that often follows from that truth, which is an idea that because America is better than many places, it must therefore be the best possible place, which is an assumption that's often implicit, I find, in how we talk about the American dream. And in my view, that's where the argument breaks down. I have traveled to about 60 countries, mostly as a solo female traveler. I've lived abroad for months at a time in nearly half a dozen countries. I've worked and studied outside the US. Much of that travel has taken me to places with far less money, less power, less global influence than we have. And what I've learned is that America does not have a monopoly on human flourishing in the way that I find the American dream often claims. There are countries that simply do some things better, not ideologically, but practically. There's healthcare that doesn't bankrupt people, work weeks that still allow room for family and rest, housing systems that don't treat shelter like a speculative casino, frankly. These places are not utopias. It's not to claim that. They also have very real problems, but they also have basic social equations that still balance, which I think is at the
About 30
heart
seconds,
of
Marissa.
in previous generations, especially individuals who might consider themselves boomers, there's an equation that mostly held, which is that housing costs were lower relative to income, education didn't require lifelong debt, healthcare costs didn't grow faster than wages, and unfortunately, my generation does not feel that the same way. And when the math stops working, people don't stop dreaming, but they do stop trusting, which is where I think we're at with conversations about the American dream. Mr. Speaker.
Right on time once again. Thank you, Marissa. Do we have a question of curiosity for our speaker? And I believe that speaker just, our previous speaker is also speaking in her very first Bravery Angels debate as well. So more jazz hands for that. Yeah, so go to previous speaker, Jonathan. Please unmute, ask your question to me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask of the previous speaker of the countries that they've been to, which one would be considered better than the United States?
To our speaker.
I want to be careful when I ask that question because when I answer that question, because I think that it can be very easy to slip into binaries and lampooning of perhaps these other places. I will say that I have encountered higher quality of life in aggregate in places like New Zealand and Australia, and I know that there are criticisms to be aimed at these countries. I have encountered better healthcare in Norway and in much of Europe. So it's more that I would really contest the notion that America has a monopoly on the best of the best and the best social equation to propose. It's not to say that other countries are perfect.
With that, I want to thank our speaker. Thank you, Marissa, and we'll move back to the affirmative. I'm going to try and see if we can get through 4 more speeches here. Andrew Parkins, I'm looking for a 2-minute speech in the affirmative.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's see. First of all, I love the points that have been made about how, yeah, the U.S. doesn't have a monopoly on prosperity, and also that how people define success can vary a lot. Now, I would say the American dream is alive and well based on how I define the dream. And there's a number of different ways you can. I think it's been said already that regardless of the background, anyone can achieve success if only they are willing to work hard. And I think there's some key parts in there. There's the idea of background. And for background, I would define background as, race, creed, religion, sexual orientation, all of those, all the aspects of your nature that don't directly impact your ability to actually work in a job and do a good job and all that. As opposed to, this unfortunately is not a perfect world. And, not everyone is born with the same innate talents. Some people are born with a mental handicap. They can't even speak, for example. It makes it hard to hold down a job in that case. Which brings us to the next word I'd like to zero in on, which is the word anyone, that anyone can achieve. It's now, once again, zooming in on people who have been born with the ability to hold down a job with various talents needed. Anyone versus everyone. I think everyone can work really hard. Unfortunately, not everyone's going to succeed. Tragedies happen, and that's terrible. I wish they didn't, but they do. So in my definition of this, it's anyone can, not everyone will. And then success. For success,
15 seconds, Andrew.
Oh my gosh. Success is the ability to have a house, be able to provide basics for your family. I think that's a reasonable goal. And willing to work hard. And I mean, be all in, work harder than I ever have, and you've got good odds. And to that extent, based on that definition, this time in history and this place in the world, as well as some others that are also prospering quite a lot, this is the time more than ever that we have that ability. And I'll just end it there. It's a good time.
Thank you for cutting yourself off. I'm sorry to make you do that. Let's go for one question here. Apple, see your hand. Please unmute and ask your question to me.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to have you ask the last speaker, what he thinks about the first speaker we had tonight, in that every year someone wins the Heisman Trophy. To define success that way is just a truism. There's always going to be a Heisman winner. Do you follow my logic? Basing the American...
The question is
basing your... I'm asking the speaker what he thinks of the first speaker's position that winning the Heisman Trophy is an example of the American dream. If it's just a truism.
That's a great question. We'll go with that. To our speaker.
Thank you. That's a good question. I don't know if that's exactly what the first speaker's point was, but that is a really good point and distinction. No, like not everyone can be an astronaut. You know, there's lots of things you can want to be, and you just never will. And that's why I think it's essential that whatever we consider to be the American dream should be a practical dream. And that's why I zero in on the ability to have a house or rent at least reliably, so that you have housing for your family, the ability to feed yourself and those you love. Those are reasonable goals, and I think those are generally achievable.
With that, our speaker is thanked. Thank you for, once again, Andrew, thank you for limiting your speech. Sorry to make you have to do that, but we are trying to fit a lot of people in here because we got more perspectives to share. So we're going to go back to the negative now for a speech from Lisa Grice. Please, you've already unmuted. You got 2 minutes.
Hi there, thanks. I do believe the American dream is alive and well, but it's only for some people, and there's a huge segment of our population for whom it's not alive and well. Think about the federal minimum wage. If you work full-time, year-round at the federal minimum wage, you will earn less than the federal poverty level. Oh, well, what if there's two of you? You're married and you have a couple kids, and you both work full-time at the federal minimum wage. You will still earn less than the federal poverty level. All right, maybe by work hard, we mean work hard at school. Just do a great job, work really hard at school. Well, it depends on where you get to go to school. And of course, I mean high school, K through 12. Schools differ dramatically in terms of student-teacher readiness, student-teacher ratio, college readiness courses. If you went to high school in New Jersey, you have a pretty good shot at going to college. If you went to high school in New Mexico, your likelihood of going to college is a lot lower. That's just how those states and their education systems stack up. So the bottom line is, I fear that people in poverty, we have a higher, it's more difficult to get up and out. Yeah, you can join the military, and there's some elements of success, as a previous speaker mentioned, but for millions and millions of people, for the 14% of children in poverty right now, it's much too steep a road to hoe to get out of that. I'm looking at your face, Sam, and thinking, do I have like 10 seconds? Is that what's happening?
20.
Yeah, so that's my main concern, is that for huge percent of people, they're not in a situation where they can pursue the American dream. Their lives in poverty are too unstable to be able to get up and out no matter how hard they work.
Thank you for your speech. Let's go to, a number of questions here. Someone, I wish I could call on you all. Please save your questions and ask them of other speakers. I'm going to call on someone I haven't seen yet. Ted, please unmute and ask your question to me.
Yes, my question is, hasn't it always been true that the dream was an ideal that was only available, only realizable to some people in the country, and that over the course of our history...
Let's stop there. I think that's a fair question, and we're trying to be brief here.
All right.
Yeah, it's a great question, Ted, and I absolutely agree with what you're suggesting. That
the questioner suggesting, yeah.
The questioner has suggested the American dream has never been available to everybody.
With that, I guess I'll take one more since the question and answer were brief. I'll go to a previous speaker. Okay, and then now there are more again. Anna, Anna, please jump in. Ask a brief question to me.
Mr. Chair, I'm curious if the speaker has any thoughts around the geographic size that starter houses don't exist anymore. In the past, when my parents were seeking the American dream, they started in a
All right, can I ask you to come to a question? It's not because
And
I
the
don't,
question is,
just be brief, please. Yes.
what do you think about how houses have changed, how the first house has changed and from 1,000 square feet to 2,400 square feet, and how that has changed and eroded the American dream?
To our speaker.
Yes.
I'm happy to answer. I believe, as a previous speaker pointed out, the starter home has a different price in different geographies. You want a starter home in Los Angeles, a 2-bedroom small house, $600,000. You want a starter home in Ohio, 2-bedroom, it's about $140,000. So there's a lot of variability on how much a house costs and how much you get for that price. I keep
All right,
looking
with
at
that,
Sam and thinking, I need to stop.
No, thank you. I appreciate your concern. I don't want to cut you off mid-sentence, but let's move along. I'm going to try and ask for. I might not be able to take questions here because we do have to run through a number of things at the end here, but got 2 more speeches in the queue. I'll go to Alan for a final speech in the affirmative. Alan, if you can keep it under 2 minutes, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. First, I'd like to say that for most debates, I think the debate centers around people's different understandings of what the terms are. So we're talking about whether or not the American dream is alive and well. So first of all, the American dream, I think most people would put somewhere in there a hodgepodge of home ownership, upward mobility, ability to retire comfortably, or quality of life relative to the rest of the world. So you put all those things in the pot there. I think there's certain things we can definitely say, even though that's a huge gray area. One is the American dream is certainly alive and well for those who have exceptional talents and motivation. I think that's undeniable. I think it's also undeniable that not everyone has the American dream available to them. And the next is when we talk about whether it's alive and well, I think it's clear that it's not dead, because clearly it's available to some people. Whether or not it's well is, I think, where the real gray area is, because some people feel that, well, it's well if we're still able to do much better than anywhere else in the world, and but it might not be well compared to where it was 10 or 20 years ago and not as quite as available. But at the end of the day, I think once you take all that and boil it down, I do think that the American dream is alive and well, if even not as available as it might have been 10 or 20 years ago. Thanks.
Thank you, Alan, for a concise, speedy speech. And do we have any questions? Going once? Going twice? All right, we'll move to the negative for a final speech. This is no problem. For our last speech, I'd like to go to Jeremy Cohen. Jeremy, if you would like to, I think, let me just make sure you're still here. Jeremy, you're welcome to. Yep, all right. Please unmute. You got up to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please be brief.
And all of our other speakers. In my years of teaching elementary school children, including special needs children, one specific incident was a first grader who consistently fell asleep in class. When I asked the child the reason, I was given the response that I sleep on the sofa until midnight, then sleep in the corner on the floor when my older brother gets home from work. I asked about his bed and bedroom and got the response that my parents sleep in the bedroom and I don't have a bed. This example relates economic disparity and a lack of opportunity that is present in this child's life due to nothing that this child has created nor brought upon himself. Another example is research I did using the data from free school lunch programs about the richest and poorest school districts in the United States, which are located in the wealthiest county in the country and only 15 miles apart: Orange County, California, Anaheim Elementary School District, and Newport Mesa, Newport Beach, California School District. This disparity of poverty and plenty relate access to opportunity on many levels: access to quality food versus food deserts, access to tutoring versus no access to educational enrichment, access to economically advantaged school districts that pay teachers a quality salary versus economically disadvantaged school districts that pay teachers lower salaries, And let's not forget that special needs children are already disadvantaged in a society that does not provide equal access to the same resources nor opportunities that others have access to. I see special needs people working at grocery stores as baggers in my local community and appreciate that they have a job and that they are contributing to our society. Yet these individuals will never have the abilities nor opportunities to earn enough money to be financially independent, and they are contributing to our society at the level that they are capable. So is holding them responsible for
15
the
seconds, Jeremy.
disadvantage they were born with appropriate? Thus, the playing field does not create nor provide equity for those born with disadvantages and bodies that don't perform at the level of others, creating individuals who cannot participate on the same level as able-bodied people. Thank you.
All right, let's go to previous speaker. I guess I've only previous speakers to choose from. I'll go to Andrew. Please ask a very quick question.
Yes, thank
to
you.
me.
I love that you pointed out.
The speaker.
Oh, sorry. So, speaker, if you could ask the speaker, given that he wonderfully stated the idea that there are people who are special needs, there are people with restricted resources at birth. I would ask, does he think that, or does
he
the
think?
speaker think?
Speaker. Yep.
Okay. Does the speaker think that what we think of as our dream should be practical, and should that in the desire to make that as universal as possible, should that dream not also include, as it did, I think, in historically, the idea of social capital and a family or community that is supporting you, so that ultimately, if you fall through the cracks, you have something to get to.
I'm going to bring to a question. I'm just going to ask Jeremy to respond. Jeremy,
yes, please, thank you.
As you would.
Thank you. Wonderful question. I do believe that individuals should have a realistic view of that dream and not shoot beyond what they're able to accomplish. But also, to the second part of your question very briefly, yes, families should be able to help them, but what happens when the family is not? That is part of the reality of what goes on when people are impoverished. Their families don't have the ability to take care of them. Thank you.
And with that, our last speakers, thank you, Jeremy, for being brief. Thank you for questions, for being concise. I'm seeing the lateness of the hour, the very lateness of the hour. We need to wrap up. We need to move to our debrief, and I'd like to fit in time for some comments. Do I have a motion to adjourn this debate?
So moved.
And a second. Okay, a second. Boom. Having been adjourned, having been moved and seconded, this debate is now adjourned. You don't have to call me Mr. Chair anymore, and I sincerely hope that you don't. I'm Sam. We're going to move on to the debrief, and in a moment, I'll take comments to share how this debate landed for you. And specifically, I'm asking people to share with me answers to the question, what is something constructive you think you'll take away from tonight's debate? It might be something you learned, something you enjoyed, something you found compelling, but I'd like to just ask that we not rehash speeches. Just share a personal note. What is something you'll be taking away from this debate tonight? And I'll take hands here from anyone who I see. Let me go to Peggy first. Please unmute, and please be brief as well so we can get in as many of these as possible. Peggy, you're muted.
Here I am. Okay, this was good to be thinking about this subject because I don't normally think about it. And so I'm realizing in myself that I think the American dream is alive and well as long as people can have hope and freedom. We still have freedom to do what we want to do that gives us hope in life. And I have 4 grandchildren who are in their 20s now. I have a lot of hope for them. And they see our world very differently than we do. And they're hopeful too. So that gives me, I'm just feeling nauseously optimistic. That's the term.
Nauseously optimistic. I've never heard that before, Peggy. I love it.
Oh,
By the way, you are all welcome to jump in the chat as well and share your takeaways and share your debrief reflections. It's open now. Brian, quick reflection from you.
Great. Thank you, thank you, Sam. So one of the things I'm taking away from it is the importance of recognizing that the American dream is not going to be the same or shouldn't be the same across different groups of people and through time. That it's it's still called the American Dream, but what it is something that's changed for each generation and perhaps each decade. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you for your speech tonight. Jonathan.
Yeah, something I've taken away from this and have taken away from previous speeches is our ability to come together and have a good conversation that isn't an argumentative debate. It isn't, name calling each other ad hominem attacks. It is just great conversation where we get to see perspectives we may not agree with, but that we can at least understand where it's coming from.
Let's go to Lynn. Lynn, please unmute. What do you think? You're muted.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. This has been enlightening. And just by seeing so many different takes on it, for and against the American dream, I believe that what is going to come down to is our definition of what is the American dream and how we define success. So to me, success is going to be the pursuit of happiness. So what is it that makes a person happy? And beyond the material, beyond owning a home, it might be someone very happy living in a hut somewhere and gardening and, doing things differently than what we might think as the big material dreams of success. So this will be lots of good food for thought. Thank you.
Wonderful. That's what we're always after. I'll go to two more. I'm going to do Pat and Bill. Pat, please unmute. I see Bill is unmuted, so why don't we go to Bill first, and then I'll come to you, Pat.
Thank you. I would like to say that this was very refreshing. It was refreshing to participate with a group of people who are intelligent and articulate and who are not at each other's throat with all the polarization that we see today.
Aye, aye. Well said. Pat, have you found the unmute? Sincerely hope so. Okay, well, if you want to share your message in the chat or if you want to share it with us afterward, we'll hope to see you in another debate before too long. I'll go to Mark. Mark, I haven't heard from you. What are your thoughts? You're muted as well. Oh, we'll go to this will be the last comment here.
I learned. Oh, wonderful. I mean, that I got in. Thank you so much, Sam. I learned that the phrase came from a book in the Depression, 1931. So, and the way the definition starts is that dream. So it seems like it is in the context of unhappy, poor times. So actually referring to something they didn't have.
All right. Well, let's thank you, Mark, and thank you all who were willing.